the point being, Cliff, that it's a terrible strategy, and what, as Watch suggests, the Democrats need to do is counter the cruelty with humanity and just help people understand this isn't about immigration. It's about your fellow human beings who have as many rights as you do to
Yep.
not just be on the planet, but thrive and be given assistance. And they need to do that with every single class of people that is being attacked, that's under assault from the right, that's being dehumanized by the right, because as that guy at Auschwitz said correctly, it starts with language and
Right.
it only devolves from there.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with the point that you made, which is throw politics aside. You always stand up for human rights. I don't care. You stand in, you stand in that breach. You stand that you protect people who need protecting. And if we can't do that, then we're not a democratic society. And we're not deserving of our system anyhow. Let's start with that. And we've failed that test in many places for most of our history, which is shameful. But politically, to jump off of Wash's point, and because the two issues, that I worked the most on for years, right? I did a ton of work on the issue of gun safety, and I did a ton of work on the issue of abortion rights. And the Democratic side, to hide in a corner, to not talk about it, to sort of say, well, let's find a moderate position, like we're okay, we'll have the Hyde Amendment. You get to have a conscience clause. Do I get to have a conscience clause about my money going to the Iraq war? I do not. You, however, whoever you are, get to have that about abortion. Like those positions make you weak. All right. They don't attract anybody. They don't inspire anybody. And as it took the Hobbs decision, sadly, for Democrats to realize we're a 70% on the right side of this issue.
And also, Cliff, that by making those kinds of compromises, you end up hurting the people who most need protection.
Of course.
The people you allegedly are wanting to represent. And that, yes, I think also makes it even more messy.
No, human rights is first and foremost. But then the fact that they wouldn't, and I've been in these rooms where I try to make these arguments and politically background checks getting 90% of the support. Like, well, people don't vote on it. And I'm like, well, they don't vote on it because you don't make the argument. You don't tell them that when you don't do a background check, that criminal, that person who's dangerously mentally ill, that person, whoever it may be, can just walk in and get whatever weapon they want. And if we don't make the argument, it's going to seem very abstract to them, and it's not going to seem dangerous to them, and they're not going to understand the stakes. And we did the same thing with abortion. We let them get away with this partial birth crap, with this, late-term abortion, babies at the last minute. There's 1,000, we're a country of 300 plus million people. There are 1,000 abortions every year after the 21st week, 1,000 only.
And why?
In a country. Why? And why does that happen? Because women are just like, hey, I think I'm going to have an abortion today. Clearly, exactly. That 1,000, that minuscule number are people in such horrific situations in terms of their health, their life, the fact that this story that just went public, this baby that wasn't going to have a skull, and this woman had to spend $14,000 to fly from Louisiana to New York. I did a story here that we ended up making national about 6-7 years ago on a woman here who knew that she was going to have a stillborn child at 23 weeks. Ohio would not let her have an abortion. She had to go to Chicago and spend $3,000. She could afford to do that. Like, that's right. What's happening after 21 weeks. It's not like, right. Hey, party time, let's all have abortions. And when we let them define it that way and hide in a corner, then a lot of people think partial birth abortion is a real thing.
Well, that's exactly right.
It's another real thing.
It's another language thing, and the legislature should not be defining medical terms. And it's just another instance in which we've lost control of the argument. Cub reporter Brian Karam has joined us.
Can I just say one last thing though, just on this? I promise to be very quickly before Cub reporter Brian Karam comes. They just had the exit polling come out from Kansas. Okay, mm-hmm. on that referendum on abortion rights. Mm-hmm. We had the highest youth turnout in the history of Kansas for this primary election. Mm-hmm. And the share of the vote that was the women's vote went up by 8 points. Okay. This is very simple stuff to understand.